What we have here is an RCA VBT-200. This is the very first VHS machine that was ever available in the West. And this one does not work, and we are going to try to get it working today. So let's take a look at what it is and isn't doing. Power's on okay. Our end of tape indicator light is working okay. Our tuner lights are working okay. Clock is working. The timer also works. I checked that off camera. So everything electronically seems okay, but here's what happens when we put a tape in. So let's try to play. It will thread, kind of, but you see it's starting to make some crinkly noises. Tape's not advancing. It unthreads, so we have some life there. I can fast forward, but the brake on this reel doesn't work. So when I do that, the tape will go flying. Rewind works, but this brake still isn't working, and you'll notice when I hit stop, it's still leaving a little bit of tape slack there where it shouldn't. So my best guess is we've got some bad belts, maybe a bad roller. Could be something else that's out of adjustment, but we won't know until we get the cover off, and that's going to be our next step here. And yeah, just a handful of screws we got to remove to get the cover off, and we'll see how it goes and what we find inside. So I'm going through and taking the various screws off that I think I need to remove this front panel. As I'm doing it, the screws are all kind of giving me a little bit of a snap when I turn them. See if you can hear it. Right there. Usually that's a good sign. It means that nobody else has been in here to do any servicing or messing around. Not to say that somebody else wouldn't be able to service these things, but I like to be the first one into any of these electronics whenever it's possible. All right, let's see what we have. Okay, we have our tape transport control there. Let's pull you off the tripod here, and we'll power it up, and now that we have the cover removed, we can see maybe what's going on. Okay, we gave it power. Let's turn it on. You can see the tape head spinning up. It's not making a lot of crazy sounds. That is a good sign. And we'll hit eject here. Let's see what happens when we put the tape in and try to play it. So on these older machines, it is normal for the tape head to spin up as soon as it's powered on. Later machines wouldn't do that until you went to actually hit play. So if you don't know how a VCR works, when you put a tape in, you might be able to see, well, it lifts up the protective cover on the end of the tape, and then it will, when you go to play the tape, it'll actually extract the tape and wrap it around this head that's spinning around and through the various bits of transport. So let's see what happens. Okay, push play. You can see it's sort of working. It's working really slow. It's having a hard time getting the tape wrapped around, and then nothing's happening at all. Let's see. Down here we have a pinch roller that should be moving the tape along. If I squeeze that, what happens? Nothing. Okay. So I think we have some bad belts and rollers, and I might have to flip this over and take the bottom off to take a look at that. Now it does unthread, so that's a good sign, but it was still struggling a little bit to do that as well. So I think the time has come to flip this over and see what we can see underneath, because I think there'll be we're going to find some bad belts and bad rollers like I'd mentioned. Let's find out. All right, I got the bottom cover off. It's just a handful of screws that held it in place, and I wanted to show you just how much stuff is packed inside of this old VCR. This VCR has a manufacture date of August 1977, according to the sticker on the back, and truly these were very, very complicated pieces of tech for their time. But there's a lot of adjustments here, so if we do get this thing working, we should, as far as moving a tape through the transport, we probably will be able to tweak the adjustments to give us a halfway decent picture, assuming the heads aren't shot. And I have every reason to believe that the heads are not shot. I don't think this unit was used very much from the time it was new. So at least let's hope that's the case. All right, I have a few more screws I'm going to have to take off to get access to the transport, which is hidden underneath some of these circuit boards here. And I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So I removed, I pulled power for one. I removed a handful of screws that are against this rail. And I gotta say, you can tell that they meant for these things to be serviced because they have enough wire and you can pull these circuit boards out of the way, but I didn't have to disconnect anything. So immediate first look, all the belts are there. This one's maybe a little bit loose. That one actually feels okay. Well, I think what we should do is probably put power into this thing and put a tape into it and see what happens on this side of the machine when we try to hit play. Right, we put a tape in, I've powered the machine, and let me push play. I gotta kind of look under here and see the button. I'll show you what's going on. I don't immediately see anything that I think would cause the symptoms we're seeing. So here's play. This stepper motor here with this worm gear, that's what threads the tape. That grease, I could probably put some fresh grease on there, and I probably will. The belt's moving around a little bit, this one here, but everything's moving and turning as it should do, so I'm not convinced that the problem lies here. I do have belts, I will put fresh belts in here just the same, but I think our problem's somewhere else. So, same when I hit, let's see if I can do this upside down, fast forward and rewind. So, yeah, I think we need to flip this back over and look at the other side. So, let's go ahead and do that. With the tape transport now out of the way, we can kind of see everything that's in here, what's going on. I've put a couple of pieces of gaffer tape on these light sensors. These sensors are used along with this light bulb. If it sees the light, it will assume that you're at the end of the tape. If you don't know, if you look at a VHS tape, that light bulb sits in this opening, and then at either end of the tape you'll see there's a hole there and one there too. And what happens is the machine will look for that light, because at the very beginning and end of a tape there's the clear part, it's called the leader. And if that light passes through that and the sensor sees it, it knows you're either at the beginning or end of the tape, and it'll stop playing, stop fast forward, stop rewind, whichever is appropriate. As far as modern VCRs go, they switched over to an infrared LED typically instead of this old incandescent style bulb. But anyhow, I put I blocked the sensors so that way the machine thinks that there's a tape inside of here. So let's watch what happens now when I push play. Slowly it's trying to thread the tape, and it ends up stalling out. Fast forward. Interesting. It's working, and this roller's working. If I hit rewind, now that's not working right either. So something's amiss here. Let's see, maybe that's all it was. With the tape transport out of the way, this would normally be sitting like so. Let's try that again. Okay, rewind seems to be working. Fast forward is working, kind of. Again, this braking mechanism is not working right. I'll have to take a look and see why that is. But you'll notice that, if I can get this to focus, we have this roller wheel here. When you hit fast forward, I'll show you what happens here, and you can see some of those cracks. This guy here spins, and this is kind of what drives either of these spindles. So if I hit fast forward, this roller makes contact with this one, which transfers over to here. Rewind, this roller just makes contact with the spindle directly. So there's a lot of cracks on there, but they're still working. I will replace those. But as I'm looking at this, one thing I noticed is that when I push play, if I engage this a bit, of course it's not going to work now. Well, earlier this thing was able to make enough progress that when I engaged the roller, the spindle started spinning like it should do, as if it's going to pull tape through. So I think my next step here is to lubricate, pull all that old nasty grease off and lubricate that worm gear that's on the other side that is part of the tape transport mechanism. So we're going to flip this back over and I'm going to get started with that, and I'll clean it up as best I can using some isopropyl to get all the old grease off, and I have some white lithium grease that I will put in its place. So let's see if that makes a difference. Something before I flipped it over, and I want to show it to you here. So as far as the brake not working, this is the braking mechanism for either reel. It might be kind of hard to see. There you can kind of see the pad. And what's happening is if I push fast forward, where do we go? There we go. Right there, that's the braking mechanism. You see how it flips back. That's what stops this thing from rotating. Watch what happens on this side. We're looking at this little cam right here. It does not move back into position. See if I can help it when I hit stop. That should cause us to stop. Okay, so we figured out why the brake's not working, and that could be part of the issue that we're having here. I think a lot of the moving pieces on this machine are probably just seized up, so some general cleanup, some lubrication might make all the difference. Well, we've got one problem solved. I was able to use some of this 3-in-1 oil over here, and I lubricated the brakes and worked the mechanism back and forth a little bit, and they're now moving as they expect. I popped this tape in. Bear in mind it doesn't have the transport in place, so I'll have to hold it as I do this, but you'll see. There we go. I can fast forward. It stops as it should. I can rewind, and it stops just as it should. So we're making some progress. Okay, I've done a little bit more off-camera poking around. I think I know what's wrong with this thing. There's a solenoid back here, and that solenoid activates part of the, or it moves the pinch roller and a few other bits and pieces underneath that make the tape move. So this might be difficult to do while holding the camera, but if I push play and I manually engage the solenoid, this is hard to do with one hand. There we go. You can see the tape's moving as it should be, but I'm having to hold this solenoid in place. It's not engaging. So the question now becomes, is the solenoid getting power and not engaging? Which would mean the solenoid is bad. Or is it not getting power to engage and disengage? I have a feeling it's probably getting the power, so the solenoid may be bad, but we'll get a meter out and we'll check it just to be sure. And you'll notice when I let go, it stops. So, solenoid doesn't really seem to be doing much. It feels pretty loose too. So I think this could be a major part of the problems that we're having at the moment. All the grease that was on this worm gear here, and I put some fresh white lithium grease on there, but I'm beginning to think that the problem might lie elsewhere. So if we push play here, check out what happens. This motor right here is not disengaging. Once the tape extractor fingers are in position, that motor should stop. And I'm thinking there may be a sensor or maybe a leaf switch that is supposed to engage when the tape is where it's supposed to be, that's not engaging, which is in turn causing this motor to continue to run and not engaging the solenoid, which would cause the tape to play. So I'm going to flip this back over and do some poking around to see, because again, if we look closely at the spindle here, you'll see it's not moving now. If I push play, it keeps moving. It's hard to see on the camera, I know, but that shouldn't be moving. The motor is still engaged, so I'll flip this back over and take a look at what I can find. We're making some progress. So this little cover was here. I've taken it off. It was held in with a single screw, but look at this. I found a leaf spring, and check out what happens when I power this on and I push play. So right now, that leaf spring is not engaging. The mechanism stalls. It doesn't think that the tape was able to thread. Now watch what happens when I engage the leaf switch. The solenoid engages. We have a rotating spindle here, and we have a pinch roller that's in contact with the capstan. When I let go, it goes back into that mode. So I think we found the source of our problem. For whatever reason, this part of the leaf switch needs to be engaging, and it's based on this little plastic tab down here. Now, as for why it's not engaging, I haven't found the cause yet. Maybe there's a broken bit of plastic. I don't know. But we'll do some further investigation and see what we can do to make that little tab engage that leaf switch. Okay, before I go any further, because I think that leaf switch is the problem, but in order to fix that, I think it's going to be a fair amount of work. So I just want to make sure this thing's even going to generate video, because if it doesn't, it's not really worth the effort to continue to try to repair this thing. But I wanted to test it, so I have it plugged into a tube set, and I have the inputs figured out. I will say the TV tuner built into this thing is working, so that's a good sign. But yeah, let's see what happens. I don't know if I'll be able to show you how it looks. Let's see if you can see that. So I'm going to push play, hold the tape, engage the leaf switch. Let's see. Hey, we got picture. We got good picture.
You're late, Cartman. I had to ride my back here. My behind is killing me. You're behind? I have to stay behind because I get shocked if I say, hey.
Good picture and good sound.
Yeah, you guys, something happened.
This is good news.
I don't think Kenny is dead. What? I saw him in my room. I know, Cartman, I know.
The machine is working.
You did?
So all I have to do is fix that leaf switch. There's a little tab that should engage that's not reaching the position of the switch. Push stop. So that's excellent news. So it's worth continuing to trudge forward on this beast and seeing if I can get it get that leaf switch to activate when we push play. So I've looked around to try to see if there's some kind of a tab or a finger or something that can adjust that leaf switch so that it activates when you put the tape in and push play. And I don't really have a lot of access to see what might be causing this problem. It looks like I may have to remove the entire head assembly to get in there and see what's mistimed. I think that's what's going on. I think there's a gear that's not timed correctly or clocked correctly. But either way, it's probably going to require major disassembly, which I'm not opposed to doing. However, that may be beyond the scope of what I wanted to do today. I've already spent a lot of time on this thing today. But we did discover that the machine is capable of producing picture and sound, and very good picture and sound. So I think this machine is worth the effort. So not all a wasted effort today. We do know that this thing will work if only we can get that leaf switch to activate. So I'm going to see if I can track down a service manual for this. There may be a adjustment or some type of diagram that could be helpful for me. I've been doing all this without a manual, which is not usually the best way to take on repairs like this, but I'm going to go ahead and button this back up for now, and I'll get back to it when I have time and motivation, and hopefully in the not too distant future we'll have a working VHS machine.